Hello, everybody. This is Kara.
This is Deja.
And this is Ed.
And this is your day's dumpster fire.
Where we don't celebrate humanity's successes,
but its most fantastic failures. Oh, Lord.
We're doing it.
For some odd reason, Deja, on the little, wave thingy here that shows your volume, you were, clipping. I don't know what that means.
I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, well, I'll figure it out in post. So, yeah, we've got a juicy topic today. Yeah, this is going to be a mouthful, and maybe something to chew over in your head. Yeah, no, this one is with a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic. Makes it more palatable, I guess. If you even have salt, pepper, and garlic,
Get it all out now.
You're stuck with these guys.
Get it all out now, because you're going to feel really bad down the road.
Oh, no. I'm very well aware of the foot and mouth scenarios. I've gotten used to it. So yeah, this is part 2 of the Donner Party that Kara kept from everybody for so long and kind of dropped the bombshell on us on the last episode.
And just kept giggling about it.
Oh,
just like,
well,
I know it's gonna be so. You guys are gonna love it, and it's
oh yeah, just trolling us the entire time.
I've been working on it since March.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is, I think it's a double-decker wagon.
Right
through the drive-through.
Yeah. Yep, getting stuck in a McDonald's drive-thru. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, that makes all of us. You might want to go back and listen to, episode 52, which is part 1 of this hot mess. That way you can kind of get an idea of, what we're talking about here, because this could easily balloon into another 2 parts.
Yeah, I'm going to have this one, and then there's going to be one more after this. So it'll be a total of 3 parts.
3 parts.
3 parts.
I feel like you're going to get into recipes eventually. You are doing a deep dive in this.
I do want to put out...
I'm logging off.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Out of respect for the people who lived through this. I am not doing that.
Well, they're all dead, so we can make fun of them.
I did want to throw out an advisory, which we've never actually done before. But after finishing it, I do want to give listeners a heads up. This is probably the darkest episode we've done so far. It does involve children in peril. It does involve cannibalism. It does involve a lot of death and starvation. So just forewarning, I'm giving you a heads up that it is very dark. There's lots of things that are involved that can be uncomfortable or considered taboo. So just be forewarned before we move on.
Yeah, I think it's
a little triggering. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and more importantly, I think this is going to be one of those episodes or topics where once you're kind of through it, you're, even though you may be struggling through some stuff, maybe hey, you just got laid off from your job, or you had to take a pay cut or whatever. These episodes should help in terms of at least you're not in this situation. You should be pretty comfortable with your life at the end of all this. So at least you have that going for you on top of aside from all the triggers, and there's going to be a lot of yikes. I feel like that's going to be our response. Yeah, you ate what?
Ugh.
Oh
yeah.
So, Kara.
Yes.
Why don't you give us a quick little recap? You don't want me doing the recap because my recaps are longer than the actual episode initially. So let's kind of like give people a refresher of what happened.
Yeah, I'll take it
for
away.
Like a movie meltdown, like into episodes, for your recaps.
Right.
Like
take something really long and shorten it into an episode.
Yeah, like my book reviews are like longer than the actual book that I'm reviewing. That's about what I do.
I know usually we start these with me asking you questions about your life or whatever, but I'm actually just going to ask one question, and I don't want you to answer it, and this is for everybody listening, so not just you guys, but what would you do? That's the question that I want running through your head for this part and the next part as we go through it. Because it's one thing to look at this situation and say, ew, gross, that's terrible. It's another thing to put yourself in that situation. So just think about it. But let's start with the recap. Originally from Illinois, the Donner family, the Reeds, and other families decided to make the trip to California. Avid readers of the book called The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California by Lansford Hastings provided a shortcut to California that would cut at least 300 miles off of their journey. So he said. They left Independence, Missouri a month later than they should have. While the first stretch of the trip was smooth sailing, the cutoff ended up costing the Donner Party 150 miles and an extra month of time. Low on resources and tight on that time, the group traversed the Salt Lake Desert and staggered out towards the Sierra Nevada mountains in October with winter on its way and very little resources and supplies. So we ended at the Sierra Nevada mountain range with our friend Charles Stanton bringing in some much needed resources and supplies. And we will start on chapter 5 called The Summit. Here we go. Let's rock and roll.
Spooky. It sounds so spooky.
The Summit.
The Summit.
Under normal circumstances, the site of the Sierra Nevada mountain range would be a cause for celebration. It marks the final stretch of the trail to Sutter's Fort, California. The party began the trip through the mountain pass in late October, which is very late. Stanton's return with resources and their new Native American guides named Luis and Salvador gave them hope that they would make it through the pass despite signs of an incoming storm. On October 31st, 1846, the axle on George Donner's wagon broke. Due to the lack of resources after the trek through the desert, he was forced to cut down timber and fashion a new axle on his own. He told the rest of his party to continue on without him, promising he would catch up once the axle was replaced. While cutting the wood, however, George slashed his hand open, making the work even harder and slower, losing a lot of precious time. And it was a pretty solid gash from what I understand. Like, it was a bad deal.
Well, this is also a time where, like, a gash could be a death sentence.
Yeah.
Because infection would set in and...
completely rot you.
Yeah. So, even by today's standards, a huge gash on your hand is like, hey, we need to get that treated. And back then, it's just like, we'll just put this dirty, sweaty rag over it and move on.
That's kind of what he had to do, considering he had to finish making the axle.
Again, people were more manly back then.
I guess that's fair. His brother was also helping him out, so Jacob stayed with him. The rest of the party, though, listened to George and moved ahead without him. Moving through the pass had begun to snow. Virginia Reed described it in her writing, stating, all trails and roads were covered, and our only guide was the summit, which it seemed we would never reach. Despair drove many, nearly frantic. Each family tried to cross the mountains, but found it impossible. When it was seen that the wagons could not be dragged through the snow, their goods and provisions were packed on oxen and another start was made. Men and women walking in the snow up to their waists, carrying their children in their arms and trying to drive their cattle. The Indians said that they could find no road, so a halt was called, and Stanton went ahead with the guides and came back and reported that we could get across if we kept right on, but that it would be impossible if snow fell. He was in favor of a forced march until the other side of the summit would be reached, but some of our party were so tired and exhausted with the day's labor that they declared that they could not take another step. So the few who knew the danger that the night might bring yielded to the many, and we camped within 3 miles of the summit. Stanton and one of the Native American guides went ahead to the summit after camp was made to see if passing through was feasible. They did make it to the summit, but they were forced to return due to the weather conditions. Upon their return, the settlers were exhausted and hungry, and they conceded to make camp near Truckee Lake with the rest of the settlers. With some luck, the Donner Party at Truckee Lake, now named Donner Lake, found some shelter in 3 small cabins that were built by settlers who came by before. The cabins were named after the families that took shelter in them: the Reed Graves cabin, the Murphy cabin, and the Breen cabin. Between the 3 cabins, about 60 people were sheltered there. 6 miles north, the Donner family made it to Alder Creek Valley before making their own camp, being forced to stop due to the harsh weather conditions. They created makeshift tents using their wagon and material they had with them. Leanna Donner, who was about 12 years old at the time, later wrote, "We had no time to build a cabin. The snow came in so suddenly that we barely had time to pitch a tent and put up a brush shed. As it were, one side of it was open. This brush shed was covered with pine boughs and then covered with rubber coats, quilts, etc. The Donners and the main party at the lake camped out overnight in hopes that the weather would die down and they would be able to make it through the pass the next morning. Sadly, they awoke November 1st to a wall of snow 5 to 6 feet tall. They were stuck, forced to wait out the winter in the Sierra Nevadas, and only 150 miles away from Sutter's Fort. They traveled all that way to get stuck. 150 miles away.
Only 150 miles away.
Yeah, that's like 5 days walking.
5 to 10, yeah.
And it was so crazy is that when I worked in trucking, this would happen even to this day. Like you would get to Truckee and then you had to gamble, right? You would either turn around in Truckee and go back to Reno, or you would try to go through that pass. And overnight, yeah, you can get 5 to 6 feet. And wasn't there one time, Kara, that we got notification like there was going to be like 15 feet of snow that was going to be dropped on Donner's Pass overnight? Like, oh, that's a lot of snow.
It's a lot of snow. In fact, there's a memorial statue over in Donner's Pass, and they purposely made the height of the statue the same height of the snow. I think it's like 12 or 15 feet. It's pretty impressive. You can see a picture of it.
Really? So there's like this giant statue that's just like way up in the air during the summer, and then... No.
It's like a 15-foot tall statue from the ground to mark the height of the snow from the ground up.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, so it's not like some dude like pulling a handcart 12 feet up in the air. It's the whole thing is...
Yeah, the whole thing's like 15 feet tall to show how
cool
deep the snow is. Yeah, sure. I mean, that'd be pretty neat.
That means they have a very good idea of what it's like there.
Right. Over in Sutter's Fort, James Reed stumbled into town in late October. Remember from the last part, James Reed was the father who was banished from the party and had to move on his own. So he actually made it to Sutter's Fort in October because he could travel a lot faster. As soon as he arrived and had the chance to recover, he began to get a search party together with supplies for his family and the party that had banished him. Only one person agreed to come with him, William McCutcheon, the same man who traveled with him when he was banished. The men left in early November, but the rescue mission was cut short after running into a wall of snow when they reached the higher altitude of the Sierra Nevadas, unable to reach the people on the other side. Reed returned to Sutter's Fort, failing in his first mission, but he refused to give up. Again, he attempted to put together a rescue party, but this time no one agreed to come until winter cleared up in February. On top of that, he found out that the U.S. was officially at war with Mexico, with many men heading south to Los Angeles to fight. Reed remained hopeful, and he agreed to fight in that war, and in return, he made a deal and he would have access to men and resources to find his family when they were available. He'd fight in the Battle of Santa Clara before organizing another rescue party later in February.
Wait, so he had to like go fight in this war, and then like, hey, these people banished me, but I want to go rescue them. Or I'm assuming the priority was his family. So he had to go fight in a war and then come back, and then
pretty much
he would get the resources to go.
Yeah, because what happened was he ended up in Sutter's Fort, and at the same time, the Mexican-American War was breaking out. All of the men were going south to go fight the war, and there was literally nobody left to help him get there. So he talked to Sutter, the guy who was in charge of the fort, and he's like, all right, I'll tell you what, you help me fight this war, and I'll get you whatever you need.
Dude, that sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Can you imagine, like, go fighting a war? That's stressful enough. let alone like knowing that your family is stranded in dozens of feet of snow. Like,
yeah, like he tried to go out there in November with McCutcheon and a few other guys, and they traveled like 4 or 5 days up into the summit, and they got pretty far, and then they reached a wall of snow that same night.
Probably that double-decker wagon that was stuck in a McDonald's and they couldn't get around it.
Oh, they left that in Salt Lake.
Oh, okay.
1800s of it all.
It's still sitting there to this day.
Right? It's still there. I think
Just
people have actually
defunct
looked for
McDonald's.
it.
That's wild.
Yeah. I think people have actually looked for it, but I'm sure it was, taken for parts or something.
Yeah, something like that would probably get broken down into 2 wagons.
Right. Chapter 6, Trapped. Over several days after being snowed in, members of the Donner Party would make various attempts to get through the pass. They would always end in failure, with settlers being pushed back by snow and winter weather. Some were forced to abandon wagons they took with them, taking shelter back at the cabins by a lake or makeshift tents nearby. Families began to slaughter and eat the cattle that they had brought with them, burying what they didn't eat immediately in the snow to preserve the precious beef. And they started to realize that they were probably stuck there until spring, so they had to figure out how to ration out as much food as possible. 6 miles away, the Donner family was in a very similar situation, but they didn't have access to as much cattle as the rest of the party. They would need to ration out their food even more carefully if they wanted to make it till spring. One settler, William Foster, had brought a rifle with him. He was able to bring down a bear, which was celebrated for a short while. However, when there were 81 hungry people to feed and only one bear and a couple of ducks, the celebration was pretty short-lived. On November 20th, Patrick Breen, one of the fathers and party members on the Donner Lake side of things at the cabins, began keeping a diary. His diary would become the only written contemporary source of the events during the winter. Other sources were written years later by those who lived through it, or interviews that have been conducted afterwards. His first entry is as follows. Friday, November the 20th, 1846. Came to this place on the 31st of last month that it snowed. We went out to the pass, the snow so deep we were unable to find the road, then turned back to the shanty on the lake. We now have killed most of our cattle, having to stay here until next spring. It snowed during the space of 8 days with little intermission. And then I'm just going to keep reading because I think he can tell it better than I can. Thursday, the 26th, began to snow yesterday in the evening. Now rains or sleet of mountainers don't start today. The wind about west, wet and muddy. And it's typed out and written the same way he wrote it. So I apologize for my slow reading of it. I have to kind of slowly go through it. But Friday...
Translate the 1800s of it.
Yes, exactly. Friday, 27, continues to snow. The ground not covered with wind dole, prospect for crossing the mountains. Saturday 28th, snowing fast, now about 10 o'clock, snow 8 or 10 inches deep. Soft, wet snow, weather not cold with wind.
I think that W stands for west.
Yeah, I think it's
coming
west.
From the west.
Yeah. Sunday 29th, still snowing. There's a lot of snow. Now about 3 feet deep, with wind west, killed my last oxen. Today, we'll skin them tomorrow. Gave another yoke to the Fosters. Hard to get wood. So just those few entries alone, you can kind of get an idea of what life was like. It was just a lot of wind, a lot of snow. We're slowly killing any animal we can for food. They're taking parts off of wagons and other things to make firewood because it's hard to get wood from the trees because of how deep the snow is. So...
Well, when you're writing in your journal, like define details of the snow.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's soft and squishy today with a certain melange to it. And, now it's like 5 feet deep and, Billy made yellow snow and threw it at everybody. Like when you are writing so much about the snow, there is not a whole lot of other stuff going on.
Well, I think it's partially that. And the fact that they knew that the snow was so detrimental to the reason that they're stuck there.
And the person that recommended taking the shortcut, is he with this group?
Oh, no. No, he made it to California back in like September.
because I feel like he would have been the first one killed if he was with this group.
No, he safely arrived in California, I think, in September.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
What a douche. Honestly.
Yeah.
He got to California. He set up his used car dealership over there. And now he's just like a sleaze bag selling crappy cars. Like,
right. He's like, I don't know what you guys were talking about. It worked fine
you took
for
the
me.
wrong shortcut. You should have taken the right shortcut.
Remember that area
Honestly,
that I pointed out to you from the top of the mountain? You should have went there, which they did.
If you would have worked harder, you probably would have made it.
No.
Yeah, you turned left at the wrong tree.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
The ignorance.
the ignorance. The party would spend November rationing resources amongst themselves. Their cattle, their wagons, anything that would ease the hunger. By December, resources began to dwindle. And during this time, too, I will say that there were several attempts, like I said before, but throughout the entire month, there were several attempts to try to get through the summit, through the pass, but it never worked. Breen wrote on December 1st, "Our cattle all killed, but 3 or 4 of them. The horses and Stanton's mules, gone. Supposed lost in the snow. No hopes of finding them alive." So we are really, really short on animals now. The people camped in the snow began to mix what little meat they had with anything of substance. Leather, twigs, sticks, bones. Before the lake had frozen over, attempts were made to catch the fish, but always proved unsuccessful. Eventually, the lake froze over, and that resource was taken away as well. So it's getting pretty dire over here.
Well, and I'm assuming for water, they're eating snow.
Yes, which brings down their core temperature.
Yep, meaning you have to have more calories to maintain your body temperature. So, like, it's almost like when you're stranded in the middle of the ocean, like, don't drink the ocean water. But because if you do, it is worse for you than not drinking it. In a lot of respects, just eating snow is like really bad for you if you don't have a way of melting it down. Did they have like any sort of shelter? Like, were they able to build like shanties with the wagons, or were they just like out in the open?
There were 3 cabins that were already built.
Okay.
That they were staying in. So the people at the lake were staying in the 3 cabins, and they would share it amongst themselves. So there were like 30 people per cabin when this first went down. No, not 30. That's too much. 20 people per cabin when this first went down. And then there were 10 people 6 miles away at Alder Creek where the Donners were, and they could only set up tents with their wagons. They couldn't set up an entire cabin.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were that spread out.
Yeah, they were pretty far apart.
And the important thing is that the people that were on the lakeside cabins, they kept it within fire code. Because as soon as you exceed like 25 people, then the fire marshal shows up and shuts the whole thing down, and then they're screwed. But if you keep it under 25, you don't have to worry about fire code.
Well, I don't know about fire code. Those cabins were pretty bad. They were in rough shape. They weren't like fancy cabins that we have now. They were literally like log structures tied together with some sticks. That
like
was
Lincoln
it.
log cabin kind of a thing but the same durability. Yeah.
Not even that great, probably. They were bad.
Screw fire code.
Yeah, there is no fire code. And at this point, too, they're like making soups pretty much. So they were also melting water down, but they were usually using it for soups and melting down bones and into like a goo and eating the goo bones. Yeah.
Trying to render as whatever they can.
Yep. That's kind of where we're at. On December 15th, one of Reed's teamsters, Bayless Williams, had died of malnutrition. He would be the first person to die at the camps at Truckee Lake. Later that same day at Alder Creek, Jacob Donner had died in his tent, leaving his wife and children with his brother and his family. It was never recorded what he died from, so we can't really say. But
his heart stopped beating.
Yes, it did. Some people say it was malnutrition. Some people say it was exposure. Some people say it was illness. I don't know, but he also died.
When you haven't eaten in weeks, like, you know, a mosquito bite could do you in, kind of a thing.
Right. It's a bad deal.
Yeah.
Seeing the conditions deteriorate rapidly, William Eddy, who was a member of the party as well, I mean, obviously, but at this point, we're just members of the party. But William Eddy, Franklin Graves, and other members began to plan another attempt to find their way through the pass. Their goal was to reach the fort in California, gather resources, and rescue to return other members of the party by all means necessary. Like this was it. They're going to do it. So that brings us to chapter 7, snowshoes. Graves grew up in Vermont and knew how to make snowshoes. After multiple attempts at marching through the snow, the settlers knew that they would need help. Without them, they would sink into 3 to 6 feet of snow, but the snowshoes helped them stand a little bit. Graves fashioned the snowshoes from raw hide and small metal rings found on the wagons. He then taught other people how to make them, and by early December, Graves and his helpers had made about 15 pairs of snowshoes for their mission. 17 members of the party that were camped at the lake volunteered, so nobody from the Alder Creek camp over where the Donners were. 9 men, 5 women, and 3 children between the ages of 12 to 17. So more teenagers than children, but they're minors, so we'll go with it. William Eddy was a 28-year-old carriage maker. William Foster and his wife, Sarah. William Pike, and these are the people who went. Sorry, I should have been more specific. But first, we have William Eddy, 28-year-old carriage maker. Then William Foster and his wife, Sarah. We have William Pike, Antonio, a Mexican teamster, Luis and Salvador, the 2 Native American guides, somebody named Harriet, Lemuel, who was 13 years old, and William Murphy, the youngest. 3 siblings, with Harriet being the oldest at 18. Franklin Graves was the oldest volunteer at 58 years old. His 2 daughters, Mary Graves and Sarah Fosdick, would travel with him. Sarah's husband also volunteered for the journey. And then we have a 17-year-old teamster, Noah James, and Charles Berger joined, as well as Amanda McCutcheon, the wife of William McCutcheon. And just some of these people were leaving their infant children. They're leaving their toddler children. They're leaving. Remember, this party is a lot of kids. So a lot of these people had families that they were leaving behind in the cabins in hopes that they would be able to come back to just feed them.
So these volunteers, these were people that were going to try to like make a break for it and try to come back with help, or okay.
Yeah. So they used the snowshoes that they made to try to make it to California and come back to help everybody else. In preparation for this trip, the group packed 6 days worth of food, preserved beef, some little bit of coffee. William Foster brought his rifle, 1 hatchet, few matches, and a tiny bit of sugar, along with a thin blanket for each person. That's all they brought. That's all they had. 2 members, Charles Berger and 10-year-old William Murphy, had volunteered to travel without snowshoes. As, we only made 15, we got 17. William Eddy brought a diary. So that's how we know what happened on this trip. The group called themselves the Party of Forlorn Hope. Armed with meager...
you got to come up with a better name than that.
That's what they called it. That's what they called it.
That does not incite hope. That doesn't incite confidence. It's just the party of despair. Like
I know. It kind of tells you where their mental state was. And I will say, after I read the whole thing, I did have to look back and ask, like, did they call themselves Forlorn Hope, or was it Forlorn Hope after all of this happened?
Yeah, did history call it that?
And from what I can tell, they called themselves Forlorn Hope. Like I said, I could be wrong. If I am, correct me on that. But from what I was able to find,
the Party of Human Popsicles.
Mm-hmm. Deja liked that one. Armed with meager amounts of food, thin blankets, and a hope for a future in California, a forlorn one, the party left on the morning of December 16th, 1846. When they left, the members found it difficult to walk in the snowshoes, as you can imagine. They were large and awkward, and many of them have never used snowshoes before. Making it more difficult was the fact that the snow was very fresh, so it was loose and super soft, making them sink into the snow by at least a foot, even with the snowshoes on. So it was an adjustment, but we did it. Not far from the camp, Charles Berger and William Murphy realized that the trek would be nearly impossible for them to without the proper gear, so without the snowshoes. And they both returned to the camp before they got too far away. So now we're down to 15. While the snowshoes did make walking difficult, it was a minor adjustment compared to the weather conditions that they prepared to contend with. The party made it about 4 miles before evening came. They made camp and a fire before settling in for the night. From where they sat, they could still see the cabins and fire smoke in the distance. Mrs. McCutcheon, Sarah Fosdick, and a few others in the party had children they left behind, so it's easy to imagine that they were longing for their children, looking at the smoke coming from the cabins, and thinking about the place they had left in search of their own survival as well as the survival of their families.
4 miles? That was in one day?
Yep.
So 4 miles in all that snow?
Yep.
That is...
pretty good.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yep.
I don't know if I said this last episode, but I wouldn't make it.
I don't think I'd make it either. I think I
wouldn't make it at all.
I think I'd be food.
No, I would be the food.
My asthma would be going crazy.
I would be the food. I would be like, I would be the feast for everybody. There's enough for me to go around.
The next day, the party crossed the summit, which proved to be more difficult than the day before. The snow reached a staggering 12 feet deep, making the journey treacherous and slow as the party needed to be careful crossing without sinking too deep in. Despite the day's difficulties, they made it 6 miles before stopping for the night. Mary Graves later wrote in a letter to historian Charles McGlashan, which I read his book, about her experience on December 17th. That's the one that I've been reading. So, okay, just side note, I'm sorry. The Charles McGlashan History of the Donner Party is that giant wall of text you guys have been seeing me read. It was written in the 1880s. Even today, it's considered like one of the more comprehensive histories of the Donner Party, but it is a little bit sugar coated with like pretty language and stuff. But it's interesting all the same. Anyway, so Mary Graves said later about her experience on December 17th. We had a very slavish day's travel. I think I'm saying that right. Slavish, climbing into the divide. Nothing of interest occurred until reaching the summit. The scenery was too grand for me to pass without notice, the changes being so great. Walking now on the loose snow and now stepping on a hard, slick rock a number of hundreds of yards in length. Being a little in the rear of the party, I had a chance to observe the company ahead, trudging along with packs on their backs. It reminded me of some Norwegian fur company amongst the icebergs. My shoes were ox bows, split in two, and rawhide strings woven in, something in the form of old-fashioned split-bottom chairs. Our clothes were of the bloomer costume and generally were made of flannel. Well do I remember a remark of one of the companies made here that we were about as near heaven as we could get. We camped a little on the west side of the summit the second night. I just thought that was an interesting description that she wrote or talked about.
Yeah, as near heaven as we could get. I feel like there's a lot of different meanings to that.
I interpreted it as they were so high in the mountains near the sky, not necessarily like this is a beautiful day in heaven.
No, what I was thinking was like what you're saying, like they're like so high up in the air, like they could reach out and touch God, or they were just like, you're gonna die, and you're really close to the pearly white gates, kind of a thing. I feel like that could be interpreted. It could in a number of ways.
Yeah, definitely in a number of ways. And she would be an interesting person to talk to, Mary Graves.
Yeah.
After making camp, the group drank a very small amount of coffee and ate a tiny bit of ration of beef before laying down to rest in the cold, soft snow. And when I say tiny, it was described as like 2 fingers. That's how much they got. So if you put 2 fingers together, that was your beef stick. That's your ration. It's great.
Sorry, there's so many jokes I can make there that I'm not.
Anyway, on the third day, the snow was blinding, especially once they got over the summit, and the sun was shining in full force, reflecting off the snow. The Party of Forlorn Hope traveled 5 miles in silence. During the walk, Charles Stanton, the man who had made it to Sutter's Fort and returned with supplies, had begun to suffer from burning and itchy eyes. By the time he had gotten through the 5th mile, he fell an hour behind the rest of the group. He had lost his eyesight due to snow blindness. On December 19th, it snowed most of the day. The party traveled another 5 miles before camping for the evening. The group of settlers built a fire and settled in for the night. Again, Charles Stanton marched into camp about an hour after they stopped, and during the walk, he fell behind. The next morning, Stanton sat near the fire, smoking his pipe, still unable to see. Mary Graves came to talk with him as the rest of the group began to continue their hike through the snow. She asked him if he was coming, and he replied that he should. And she left him, smoking by the fire, following her father and sister as they left the makeshift camp. He was never seen again. That was the last time he was seen alive. So
they just left him there?
They thought he was coming. She asked him, like, are you coming with? And he said, I should. She said, okay. And she followed her family. And the past 2 days, he's been falling an hour behind.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they thought that he'd be following.
Well, and it's crazy. Like, nobody stayed with him to help him or whatever. It's just...
Yeah. At least that's what was written down. It could be that maybe somebody stayed, or maybe there was more conversation like, oh, go on without me. I'll be there, or something of that nature.
That's true. And this was written, 40 years after?
The
events, you said, like 1880s?
This is Mary Graves. So this was her probably in the interview. So yeah, I'd say like 30, 40 years after.
Okay.
So there could have been some conversation.
A lot of things could happen in one's memory during all that.
The remaining snowshoers traveled 4 miles that day, continuously looking for Stanton. They slept that night, hoping that he would come back overnight. When they woke up the next morning, the snow was estimated to have reached 15 feet. It was silently concluded that Stanton would probably not be coming back. So we're down to 14. For those of you keeping track at home.
I feel like that scene from Fellowship of the Ring where they're trying to go through that mountain pass.
Yeah.
then they're like, let's go through the mines of Moria. Yeah. And like,
it's a good idea.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong there? So yeah.
What could go wrong?
A cave troll. None of that going on here, I'm assuming.
No trolls or orcs or anything. Caves, no elves. All
right, well then I'm gonna.
Unfortunately, there's no caves. I'm sorry.
That's what I was here for.
Before continuing the journey, William Eddy checked one of his bags, looking for something or possibly making space. I don't remember exactly why. But in the very bottom, he had found a preserved chunk of bear meat, which was great. Like, hey, we're desperate. And it came with a note from his wife, written in pencil, "Your own dear Eleanor," with the direction of saving the meat in a moment of desperation. I thought that was nice. He kept his gift close, as this day number 6, would be the last day the snowshoe party would have something to eat.
Ugh.
They are out of food, everybody. We are out of food.
How many more miles do they have to go before they could actually, like... Because didn't you say it was like 150 miles?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to reach, is 150 miles.
And they're like, what, 30 by now? Like 30 miles out?
Something like that.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
I now see why they all agreed this was the Forlorn Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Ugh. I think they were hoping that in the process of heading out west, somebody would be heading east, trying to find them. And my guess is that that's what they were trying to do, is maybe they could find a rescue party that was trying to find them.
Yeah, it was that. And I think they were also probably hoping that the snow would let up a little bit. Like maybe it'll stop snowing for at least a night, maybe 2, but no.
No. I guess it could make plenty of snowballs.
Right. They traveled another 4 miles before making camp. Overnight, a snowstorm blew through, and it snowed for 24 hours straight. Without food, the members of the group decided to save their energy and wait it out. They began to hike again the following morning, December 23rd. They traveled 8 miles that day, which probably felt pretty promising until they realized that they didn't recognize the landscape. Their guides, Luis and Salvador, were just as confused.
Oh, good.
Considering it had been snowing all night, It was likely very easy to get lost. And now, after a long day of travel with no food, the party was most definitely lost.
Yeah, this is where the forlorn part of this group's name is now underlined, underlined,
Bolded.
bold, and italicized.
Highlighted.
Yeah, and highlighted.
Can you see why?
Yellow and pink.
Right? And it gets worse.
Oh, good.
You're welcome. But can you see why I went back to check to see if that name was given prior or before?
Yeah,
on Christmas
like
Eve.
They brought it upon themselves.
Well,
with a name like that, you're just telling God, like, okay, give it to us. We've got this.
no.
Meanwhile, there's no snow anywhere else on the earth. It all landed on
All landed through Donner's Pass.
These past 5 days.
Okay, here we go. And forewarning, this is where it gets a little dicey. So if you are easily triggered and sensitive to things, I just want to give you a heads up that this is going to get a little sketch. More so than it already is. On Christmas Eve, it rained from morning until evening. Not snow, but rain.
Okay. So that means they're going down in altitude.
Yeah, they're probably going down now. In the evening, the rain turned to snow. The group traveled 2 to 4 miles before being forced to stop due to the weather and their own deterioration. Tired and hungry, they attempted to build a fire but failed continuously because it was raining. And as the day grew to night, just continued to get worse. And, now we have snow.
And that rain turns into ice.
Yes.
And that's
now
poses
there's
a whole
hail.
other set of problems. Yeah.
It's a whole thing. By nightfall, the weather finally calmed down a little bit, and a council was called amongst the party to decide how to move forward. The 2 options they had at this point were to continue on or turn back towards the cabins. And this is Christmas Eve, so we're on day 8, 9 without day 8, 9. So that means we're on day 3 without food. Somewhere around there, 2, 3 days without food. By nightfall,
their blood sugar must be nothing at this point.
So we're talking about these 2 options. We're going back to the cabins or we're pushing forward. So I'm going to ask you that question again. You don't have to answer it. Just think about it. What would you do? What would you want to do in that situation? That's a tough choice. All 5 women, Louise, Salvador, and William Eddy, chose to push forward. The rest of the men felt that they would be in a better position to return to their families that they had left behind. It's a really hard choice. So I get it.
Yeah.
Both sides.
That's an impossible choice.
Mary Graves in particular had a very strong desire to push forward, inspiring others in the group who thought differently. She said later, "What to do we did not know. Some of those who had children and families wished to go back, but the 2 Indians said that they would go on. I told them I would go too. To go back and hear the cries of hunger from my brothers and sisters was more than I could stand. I would go as far as I could, let the consequences be what they might be." That's pretty powerful.
And here I am getting frustrated that the gas station that I normally go to in the morning is out of Coke Zero. And then I have to drive a mile to find a gas station that does have Coke Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
You can't complain anymore.
I have I have in my air-conditioned car. in Arizona where it's like 80 degrees outside. It's just oh man. Yeah, no, they were something else back then. They don't make them like that today.
Man. Once it was decided that they would continue forward, it was quickly realized that something had to be done about food. Patrick Dolan suggested that they draw names. The person whose name would be drawn would be sacrificed. Desperate and starving, the snowshoers knew they were on the verge of death by starvation. They agreed, and they drew names. Again, what would you do?
So they were talking about like, hey, we're going to take one of us, kill him, and then eat him?
That was the suggestion.
Wow. The fact that they even posed that question is a very good indicator of just how well, for the lack of better words, forlorn their situation was.
It's rough. It's rough.
Man.
So initially they agreed and they all drew the names, and ironically, Patrick Dolan's name was drawn. However, when it came down to killing him, nobody could do it. They didn't have the heart to do it. They didn't want to. Murder's hard. Fair.
Yeah.
Their humanity overcame their hunger, but not by much. Instead, they decided to come up with other solutions that wouldn't involve outright murder. William Eddy suggested that 2 names should be drawn. The 2 people chosen would duel till one or both died. This idea was shot down because murder. I personally didn't find any sources saying why, but I can imagine there were a few reasons against this one. You know, watching 2 people duel it out is not, it doesn't sound like a good time in this type of setting.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is, human beings have a degree of dignity.
Yeah.
And this would be a very ignoble approach. Like, okay, yeah, we can starve to death. Nature can kill us all, blah, 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 blah. But at least as humans, we can opt not to degrade ourselves to base animal behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a part of that was going on there. It's just like, yeah, we are going to die, but we don't have to go like a bunch of heathens or barbarians or whatnot.
Yeah. After that one was shot down, Eddy suggested that they wait and continue forward until somebody died of starvation or from the elements. That was agreed upon. Between 10 and 11 p.m., the wind, the rain, and the snow came back with a vengeance. Hail included. Some remembered what it was like that night, describing it as a perfect tornado. I think that's what William Eddy wrote. Blowing out the fire that they had managed to start after the rain stopped. It was a whole thing. Understanding that there was a real possibility of starvation and hypothermia, William Eddy came up with an idea. Something that he had learned while hunting back home. He told his fellow travelers to give up on the fire until conditions improved. He then had everybody sit down in a circle very close together in the snow and then covered themselves with layers of blankets. So they basically entangled all of their legs for body heat, and they sat really close together and then used their thin blankets each to kind of layer them and cover themselves up.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it's actually pretty solid. And I don't remember who it was, but one of the party members said that it was William Eddy who saved their lives that night.
Well, except for one guy, it sounds like.
Well, except for 4, but it's fine.
Yeah. But still, if the people that did survive, they would attribute that to Eddy's idea.
Yeah, exactly. Antonio, the teamster from Mexico, died of starvation and fatigue that night. Franklin Graves, Mary and Sarah's father, was on the verge of death as well. He lay in the arms of his daughters, speaking with them as a storm raged outside of the blankets that covered them. He urged his daughters to keep going, to think of their siblings and mothers back at the cabins just as hungry as they were. It said that he told his daughters to use his body to survive and do whatever they needed to in order to save the people who were counting on them. Then he died in the arms of his oldest daughters.
Yeah, that's traumatizing if you're those daughters.
Well, it's Mary Graves and Sarah Graves. They got this.
Jeez.
The group mourned, but stayed in their shelter for a majority of Christmas Day. Christmas morning, Patrick Dolan began showing signs of delirium, continuously trying to leave the shelter for illogical reasons, saying that he was on fire, his skin is burning, and usually that's both a sign of starvation and frostbite. Eventually, he had escaped the shelter yelling and screaming before being forced back into the shelter by Eddy. And while Eddy was holding him down, he slipped into a coma and he died. So we had 3 people who passed away that night. All right, let's take a break from that. Okay. Not that much of a break, but let's take a break from that. Back on the lake, the remainder of the Donner Party continued to take shelter in their cabins and in the tents at the creek. Starvation was still very, very real, and resources were still scarce. However, many still found ways to celebrate Christmas holidays with their families. Virginia Reed said later in life, Christmas was near, but to the starving, its memory gave no comfort. It came and passed without observance, but my mother had determined weeks before that her children should have a treat on this one day. She had laid away a few dried apples, some beans, a bit of tripe, and a small piece of bacon. When this hoarded store was brought out, the delight of the little ones knew no bounds. The cooking was watched carefully, and when we sat down to our Christmas dinner, Mother said, "Children, eat slowly. For this one day, you can have all you wish." So bitter was the misery relieved by that one bright day that I have never since sat down to a Christmas dinner without my thoughts going back to Donner Lake.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
Little Virginia.
Like, how heart-wrenching.
But also, like, uplifting in a way, too. Like, talk about the true meaning of Christmas right there.
Yeah, there's humanity there, right? There's humanity there. There's like a mother is giving what she can to her children, and the children were so excited.
Yeah. Huh.
Another child, Mary Murphy. No, don't. It gets worse.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, you raised your hand, like on Teams.
I didn't mean to do that.
Another child named Mary Murphy, who was 13 at the time, the same age as Virginia. She said, "Christmas, we had a meal of boiled bones and oxtail soup. After supper, Mother was barely able to put the babies to bed, and later on that evening, with Brother William reading her favorite psalm from the good book, she became bedridden and seriously ill." So they did celebrate Christmas in their own way as well. So I think some families were able to celebrate, some families did not. Just depends on where they were.
Meanwhile,
back with the Forlorn Hope party through the pass in the snow the next day.
And what about the Donner folks 6 miles away? Like,
I think they were just in their tents trying to survive because they had it harder than the people in the cabins. They were in tents with half of it open. Like, it was rough for them. So I think they were just trying to get by.
Golly, because
Jacob had passed away. George has that
hand wound,
gash in his hand, which is getting infected. BT dubs.
Okay.
And then their children were with them, and Jacob Donner's wife, Elizabeth, is probably starting to become ill.
Not to mention, too, like every day they would have to, like, if they were in tents because of the snow, they would actually have to, like, undo their tents.
Yeah.
And then, like, restock the tents on higher ground. Otherwise, they would get completely covered.
I think they let it get completely covered.
Okay.
I think there is a point where they weren't able to dig themselves out anymore.
So basically, they had, like, under snow, like igloos kind of a thing, which actually that isn't a bad way to go. That actually can retain a lot of heat.
Yeah. Okay. Through the pass and the snow the next day, the snow had finally settled, leaving some respite from the winter for the snowshoers. William Eddy made a fire for warmth, and as he was making it, they had a hard time starting the fire because they didn't have any kindling. And originally he had tried to, I don't remember what he used, but he tried to start the fire and it blew up on him, burned himself and 2 other women who were next to him. Sorry, that was loud.
He was probably trying to use like gunpowder or something like that to light it.
It was gunpowder, I think, or something like that. Yeah. That didn't work. And then eventually he was able to get some cotton from a woman's shirt and strike a piece of flint, I believe, and that started the fire.
Okay.
3 people had passed away in quick succession, and the group faced a very difficult decision: eat the bodies of their companions or die of starvation. Without a council or a conversation, somebody, we don't know who, cut small amounts of flesh from the bodies that lay in their camp and cooked them over a fire. All except Luis and Salvador ate in silence, looking away from one another. They couldn't look at each other.
I think they purposely left out that person.
Very likely.
Like they didn't specify who it was, because who wants to be known as the first person?
Yeah. Very likely.
Yeah, they probably did that out of respect.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, yeah, it's one of those things. It doesn't do anybody any good to starve to death where they're at.
Right.
Like that will not help out anybody back at the lake or, further back in the snow if they don't make it.
I think from everything I've read on this, and I can't speak to the people reading the newspapers at the time, but nobody has ever blamed them or spoken bad of them for doing this.
Yeah, I don't.
But not that I know of.
It's not like they were having like, back at home when it's nice and they're having a barbecue or like in whatchamacallit, in The Walking Dead, where they stumble upon that sanctuary where they are just actively grilling people up.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But if there is no other option, I mean, I can't judge anybody for that.
The situation was desperate. And while they felt shame and regret in their actions, the people of the Forlorn Hope party who ate regained some energy. All except Lemuel Murphy. The boy's body was giving up on him and the starvation had proved to be too much. He died at 2 a.m. on December 27th in the arms of his sister. The next morning, the remaining snowshoers had decided to preserve and dry more flesh from bodies, labeling them to avoid eating family members. This process took about 2 days. Once completed, they continued their journey through the Sierras looking for help for the loved ones at Truckee Lake. The camp they would leave behind would be called the Camp of Death. 3 days later, their group of 10, so we're down to 10 now. 3 days later, the group of 10 ran out of food once more. One night, fueled by hunger and racist ideologies of the time period, William Foster had begun talking with William Eddy about killing Luis and Salvador for food.
Jeez.
Eddy waited for Foster to fall asleep, then warned the Miwok tribesmen of Foster's plans. Both men left the party during the night in hopes that they would find their own way back to safety, thanks to William Eddy's warning. The men, however, had not eaten for 9 days, and the exposure to the winter weather continued to affect them. They didn't make it very far from where the rest of the group was camped, and before finding a spot under a tree to lie down, leaving bloody footprints behind them due to the long walks they had taken, plus probably frostbite. The next morning, William Eddy and Mary Graves went hunting for food. They'd managed to shoot a deer and excitedly returned to camp with venison for their companions. However, when they got back, they found that Jay Fosdick, Sarah's husband, had died of hunger and exposure. Now we're down to 9. William Foster woke up the next morning in a rage. He is starting to suffer from delirium as well, plus the other thing. He threatened to kill and eat numerous people in the party before Eddy overpowered him, and Eddy warned Foster that if he threatened anybody ever again, he would kill him himself. Good for Eddy. This seemed to tame Foster for a couple days, but it didn't last very long. Foster had found out that Eddy had warned Luis and Salvador, and while they were continuing to walk and, like they're continuing their journey and their hike, they saw Luis and Salvador's bloody footprints, and he began to follow them. He took out his gun and found the 2 men laying under the tree, probably in really rough shape. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm sure you can just imagine what he did next.
So this is assuming they were still alive when you found them.
They were.
So that means, so he would have to shoot one and then reload and then take care of the other. And that's a brutal situation to be in.
It's bad.
But again, though, like they're also not a really sound mind either. It's not like
right. It's muddy and messy. There's gross racism involved, but he's also suffering from delirium and they're starving.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many things that are compromised in all of this, like health and mental status, and this is a dumpster fire.
I told you
more like a dumpster freezer.
I told you it's bad.
All because of a shortcut.
Okay, last chapter for the night. Here we go. Chapter 8, California. Back in California, the Mexican-American War was raging. The Americans were fighting for land to expand while Mexico was trying to keep hold of it. James Reed found himself in Northern California fighting in the last battle in the north, the Battle of Santa Clara on January 2nd. While fighting, he was able to find allies in the military, and this gave him resources and connections that he would rely on to save his family. Los Angeles was taken by the U.S. on January 10th, 1847. Reed would soon meet up again with Sutter, asking for advice on putting together a rescue party. Sutter suggested Reed go to San Francisco to raise funds, resources, and find some men. If he were successful there, he would have the backing of the military with enough men to make the journey not just for him, but for the Donner Party stranded in the Sierras. Reed heeded Sutter's advice and traveled to San Francisco on horseback. He began gathering men, making speeches, trying to rouse people and inspire them to come help. And he would take anybody who would help him. While Reed was in San Francisco, John Sutter stayed near Sacramento at his own fort, Sutter's Fort, where everybody's trying to get to. There was talk of a group of settlers being trapped at Truckee Lake, and people were starting to get nervous because they knew that they were trapped up there. Sutter went through town offering $3 per day for anybody who would travel with him to rescue the members of the Donner Party. He was able to find 7 men who were willing to travel into the Sierras with him. They planned to leave on January 31st, 1847. So we got that going for us. We got a little glimmer of hope. Some rescue.
Yeah, I wonder what those 7 men, like, what, I mean, obviously the $3 a day was cool, but I kind of makes me wonder, like, what those 7 men had a part of their decision-making process to take on something like this.
I think part of it was they wanted to just help. Maybe some of them were immigrants. Maybe some of them were soldiers. Maybe they had a good relationship with Reed or Sutter. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious to talk to them someday, you know, like when I'm dead, just chilling up in heaven, like I'll find these 7 guys and just talk to them.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple people like that in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the past, William Eddy and the 6 remaining members of Forlorn Hope, were down to 7 people, continued their journey after the incident with Foster. He had killed the 2 men, and while there was initially outrage, the party was so hungry that their hunger won the argument. On January 12th, after traveling about 17 miles,
wow,
Mary Graves saw tracks on the ground. She called the party behind her and renewed the group's excitement. The tracks turned out to belong to the local Native American tribe, the Miwok people, the same people that Luis and Salvador were a part of.
Ooh.
The party staggered into the village full of men, women, children. The 2 men and 5 women were described as looking skeletal, dirty, and disheveled. The people in the village were moved to tears when they first saw them. Like, literally, they were crying. Fighting through their own feelings, the people of the village then hurried about, bringing the starving settlers bread and soup made from acorns. In total, the snowshoers stayed in the village for 7 days, taken in by the people in the village as if they were family. And on the 7th day, the group left the village to finish their trip. Guided by a few volunteers from the Miwok village, they traveled for 2 more days when they finally made it out of the Sierras and into Bear Valley. Rejoicing, they had stopped at Johnson's Ranch, about 56 miles north of present-day Sacramento. And that ranch would soon become like an area where they would wait and camp out and like sit. And it was like it was fortified. We've got food, shelter, the whole thing. The 7 survivors were William Eddy, William Foster, Mrs. Foster, Mrs. Harriet Pike, Mrs. Elizabeth McCutcheon, Sarah Fosdick, and Mary Graves. It had taken the 7 remaining members of the group a total of 33 days to travel from the camps at the lake to Johnson's Ranch in Bear Valley. They began to spread word that there were still people stuck in the Sierras and rescue parties needed to be sent. So I'm going to stop it there, kind of on a high note. And then we will start talking rescues and reliefs and other things for the next part.
I feel like the rescue attempts were like mini dumpster fires in their own right.
Yes, that to me was the most interesting part. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a good time.
Now I can finally breathe. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, that's that definitely when it's told right, you really get a perspective of like, yeah, my life's actually going okay. We don't really have it that hard, and what I like about this is that it really shows, you know, like people be peopling, like people will sometimes always do the worst, but then you've got cases like this where there is legitimate examples of human beings trying to like, well, be good human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's moments like this that really bring out what people are really made out of.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in the next part too.
Yeah,
I think you see it more, right? What you got?
Show me what you're made of.
Well, that was
Show
yeah,
me
that's
what you
right.
got.
So, audience case, if you're wondering, Deja is dying.
I'm delirious.
Yeah, she caught like airborne AIDS or something like that, or Ebola or whatever.
It's good. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's called Children.
Yeah, your kids are walking petri dishes at that age.
It's called My Children Spread Germs to Me.
And then going into the classroom. Yeah. Yeah. It's never ending. Any teacher, the first years of teaching, they are sick for like the first 3 years straight. And then after that, you've caught everything under the sun. And then you never get sick again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes. Or what you do get is it will lay you out for a week. Like you're not even moving.
100%. I do. Except I don't cry about it. Just kidding, I do. I really do. I milk it. But, you know, honestly, I am grateful for my slight sickness over all the nasty sickness and
all that
eating of things. I'll handle this like a champion. I will not handle that like a champion. I will fold so fast. You asked what I would do.
What would you do?
I don't think I should answer that online.
Yeah, you don't have to. That's why I prefaced it with, you don't have to answer this question. Just think about it.
Let me not.
Yeah.
I would survive.
What would you do?
Yeah, it is tricky, and I could see why this would be so tricky. But I guess the way I'm looking at it, I think the way a lot of people are looking at it is like, hey, I'm not in that situation, therefore I'm not going to pass judgment on their decisions. Now, going out and actively trying to kill two people for that purpose, that's a little overkill. No pun intended. But like, hey, somebody passed in the night and you made this agreement prior. You got to do what you got to do, because if everybody dies on that, then there's going to be no rescue attempt, or it's going to be really limited come during that spring thaw. Yeah, for me, it would be like, okay, I got to do what I got to do, because there's more writing on it than like what people would think of me for going down that.
That's kind of like what Franklin Graves was saying to his kids, like, do whatever you need to do to get through it. So,
yeah. Well, on that note, like and subscribe.
Roughity rough.
Yeah, hit that notification bell.
Bam.
But we'll I mean, I'll definitely get this out sooner than later, and then looking forward to part 3. And I've got a really good palate cleanser coming up. Yeah, it's a mix between A Flooded World and Mad Max, and it was one of the biggest flops, most expensive movie flops of the 1990s. So that will be a
solid palate cleanser.
Very solid palate cleanser, because there's a lot of really weird, kind of funny stuff that went on. A lot of people almost died, but just the nature of what was going on while trying to make this movie, and you're just like, why would you do it this way? So we will definitely have that coming around the bend, so to speak. But yeah, in the meantime, be sure to hit up our website, daysdumpsterfire.com. Curious to see, Kara, what you're going to put up there for artwork for this episode, or this series that you're doing.
Probably the double-decker wagon.
The double-decker wagon's got to be a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
or like the guy who like cut his hand, and so it's like, obviously you don't want to make it too graphic, but remember that episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob has that splinter in his thumb, and Patrick is just like slathering like solid waste, and then like it gets so big, it's like 10 times bigger than SpongeBob. Like I have visions of that.
Just knowing what happens to him, I don't think I'm gonna do that.
Oh, okay.
You know.
So more fall off the bone goodness there.
Okay.
But yeah, go to the website, check out our whole back catalog of 52, 53 episodes. So we will have notes on there. I'm actually working on a couple of like little essays. Each one of us hosts, we have our own section on there that we can put up our own meanderings and whatnot. And that's right. I'm working on an essay about failing. Because who doesn't want to read that? It's either read that or watch C-SPAN. And people may opt to read my thoughts on what failure looks like. So
it's understandable.
So very much go there. Check out the website. We're on Instagram at the Days Dumpster Fire. In the meantime, go out, tell people about us. Try to take people's phones. That's really the easiest thing to do. Is just take a phone and
just steal one.
Yeah,
that's
just
not
steal
easy.
it and subscribe
just steal a
to
phone.
it.
No.
Period.
I don't
subscribe to the phone.
Subscribe to the phone.
Just do just go out and buy a whole bunch of data plans and just like swap out the SIM cards and subscribe. But yeah, like go around, spread the word. This is something that people ask is like, oh, who's your audience? I don't know. Anybody would be interested.
Your mom. You.
Yeah.
Your grandma.
Yeah.
Your uncle.
Anybody who's ever had their own dumpster fires in their own lives that could benefit from something like this. This is the direction we're kind of going in is, okay, why do we actually study history? And we've always heard it before, so we can't let the mistakes of the past repeat itself. Well, in our individual lives, that's going to happen whether we like it or not. And understanding situations like this can actually help you, at least the bare minimum, have some perspective in terms of what is it that you're currently facing. So kind of spread the good word that way. Feel free to email us at thedaysdumpsterfire@gmail.com. We are totally open to ideas. We would love to hear your own personal trash can fires. Or you could just email us and tell us what we're doing wrong, because I'm pretty sure I messed up here and there. So yeah, all the communication stuff is out there. You can also, there's a link on our website where you can actually like send us a text message. And if you are podcast inclined or you have a means to record a message, you can also send it via email as well if you want to do like a voicemail type of thing. So yeah, stay tuned for part 3 of this crazy story. And yeah, that's all I got, unless you guys have something.
Nope,
I'm good.
Okay, well,
that's all, folks.
Yep. Keep it a hot mess.
Bye.
Bye.